Hey everyone, welcome back. We're about to jump into a really cool topic today. We're going to be talking about some of the wealthiest Black communities in the U.S.
Yeah, this is gonna be fun.
So, we always like to kind of go a little bit deeper though,
Yeah.
right? It's not just about, like, oh, hey, they have a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's about kind of understanding like how they got there and what makes them unique and all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And, maybe some of our listeners are looking for a place to live,
Right. Right.
or just looking for inspiration, to
Exactly.
build a community.
Inspiration for community development, economic success.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot we can learn from these communities. So,
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that's really cool about these communities is that they kind of go against a lot of the narratives that we sometimes hear.
hmm
And it really highlights, the potential for success through collective effort and, strategic planning
yeah,
and just this real emphasis on education and opportunity.
I like that. Okay, so to kick things off, let's start with two California communities that are right at the top of the list,
Okay.
Ladera Heights and Baldwin Hills.
Sounds good.
Right, so Ladera Heights, you might hear Ladera Heights and be like, oh yeah, that's where a lot of celebrities live.
Right.
But it's more than that,
It's much more than that.
right? So what's really interesting to me is their commitment to community building.
Okay.
So they have things like the Ladera Heights Civic Association, and they
Yeah.
do all sorts of things. Like they host events, they advocate for residents, they even offer scholarships.
Wow.
So they're really, trying to help people within the community.
Yeah, it's really fostering that sense of belonging.
Yeah,
And that's so key because when people feel connected and invested in their community, they're more likely to contribute to its well-being.
exactly.
And I think that's also reflected in Ladera Heights' excellent schools,
Yes,
which, is often a top priority for families, looking for a place to settle down.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And, it's not just about individual success.
Yeah.
It's about like creating this environment where everyone can thrive.
Right.
And speaking of thriving,
Yes.
Baldwin Hills.
Okay.
Now, this is often called like Black Beverly Hills.
Right.
And it's just so fascinating to me because they have this captivating blend of like history and progress.
I think Baldwin Hills is such a great example of how a community can embrace both its heritage and its future. You have the historic Village Green, which was one of the first planned communities for Black families,
Wow.
standing alongside, these modern developments like the Baldwin Hills Crenshaw Plaza,
Oh, yeah.
which is this hub for, Black-owned businesses and cultural events.
Absolutely.
And I think that this dynamic mix really attracts residents who value both history and economic opportunity.
Yeah. And it's like they found this really great balance between, preserving their roots, but also, creating new avenues for growth.
Exactly.
It's really cool. All right. So,
Yeah.
ready for a little bit of a change of scenery?
Oh, yeah. Let's go.
Okay. Because we're heading east to Maryland. Now, Maryland has like a whole cluster of these successful communities.
Yeah, and I think what's really interesting about the Maryland communities that we're going to be talking about is that they kind of illustrate how different approaches can lead to, similar outcomes.
Oh, interesting.
And we see this with places like Mitchellville, Fort Washington, and Bowie, which all boast really high median incomes.
Okay. So, for people who might not know, what is median income?
Oh, yeah. So median income represents like the midpoint of all incomes in an area.
Okay.
So it kind of gives us like a snapshot of its overall affluence.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So higher median income, generally that means there's greater financial stability within a community.
Generally, yes. Exactly.
Okay, cool. Cool. So what are some of the things that kind of contribute to that in these Maryland communities?
Well, it seems like all of them share a really strong emphasis on education.
Okay.
They have highly ranked public schools and a really high percentage of residents holding college degrees. And this focus on what we call human capital is often like a major driver of economic success.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And it's not a coincidence that these communities also attract, families who really prioritize education and they're willing to invest in their children's future.
Totally. It's like a self-reinforcing cycle.
Yeah.
Good schools attract families who value education,
Mhm.
and then that leads to a community that prioritizes learning and that fuels economic growth.
It's just this upward spiral.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh.
Okay, but it's not all cookie cutter suburbia in Maryland, is it?
Not at all. In fact, we see a very different kind of appeal in Rosaryville, which offers a smaller, more kind of rural setting.
Okay.
And it's attracting families who are looking for, a quieter pace of life.
Yeah.
And it shows that, prosperity can take many forms and cater to, diverse preferences.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good reminder that wealthy doesn't always mean like bustling city life, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so another Maryland community that I'm kind of curious about is Lake Arbor. And the reason I'm curious about this one is because they have really strong homeowner associations.
Yes.
And I'm curious about how that plays into, the whole community wealth thing.
Yeah.
So can you kind of shed some light on homeowner associations?
Sure. So homeowner associations, or HOAs as they're often called, play a really significant role in maintaining property values and community standards.
Oh,
Think of them as like mini governments for neighborhoods.
okay.
They enforce rules about, property maintenance, landscaping,
Mm-hmm.
even architectural styles.
Oh, wow.
So by upholding these standards, HOAs can help ensure that property values, remain stable or even appreciate over time.
Okay.
And that contributes to the overall wealth of the community.
So it's not just about, individual homeowners taking care of their own property, but it's about the collective effort.
Exactly. It's a collective effort to maintain the appeal and the value of the whole neighborhood.
Yeah, it's fascinating how those seemingly small details
Yes.
can really have a big impact on the financial well-being of a community.
Absolutely. And, HOAs sometimes get a bad rap for being too strict, but
Oh, yeah.
in many cases, they really do play a crucial role in preserving the quality of life
Mm-hmm.
and the financial stability of a neighborhood.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we wrap up our little Maryland tour,
Okay.
we have to talk about Charles County.
All right.
Now, this is an area that's been experiencing a lot of growth,
Yes.
and it's got a mix of urban and rural environments.
Yeah, a good mix.
So what's driving that growth, and
Okay.
how does that play into, the county's success?
Well, I think a lot of Charles County's success can be attributed to strategic planning and investment.
Okay.
They've really focused on improving their transportation infrastructure,
Okay.
which makes it easier for residents to commute to, nearby Washington, D.C. for work.
Oh, yeah, makes sense.
They've also attracted new businesses and industries,
Mm-hmm.
which creates jobs and diversifies the local economy.
So they're not just relying on like one economic engine. They're creating multiple avenues for growth.
Right. And that makes them much more resilient.
That's smart.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we venture too far from the East Coast, we have to make a stop in New York.
Yeah.
Two communities there have also made it onto our list.
Okay.
Hillcrest, which is in Queens and Uniondale on Long Island.
Sounds good.
All right, so Hillcrest really stands out to me because of its local business scene.
Yeah, Hillcrest is a great example of a neighborhood where small businesses are really the backbone of the community.
Yeah.
You have everything from family-owned restaurants and shops to professional services,
Hmm.
all contributing to this sense of economic vitality.
Yeah, it's like they've created this self-sustaining ecosystem where money is just circulating within the community,
Yeah,
supporting local jobs and families.
just keeping the money local.
Yeah, I love that. All right, so what about Uniondale? What makes it tick?
Uniondale, I think, is a really fascinating example of how diversity can be a strength. It's a community with a rich mix of cultures and backgrounds.
Mm,
And that diversity is reflected in its schools, businesses, and community organizations.
wow.
They've really embraced the idea that different perspectives and experiences can truly enrich the fabric of a community.
And, not just like enriching the community, but I imagine that having diverse businesses and services also caters to like a wider range of needs and preferences
Exactly.
within the community.
Yeah,
So that's
no.
great.
And it really shows that, embracing diversity isn't just about social equity, it's also about economic vibrancy.
Mhm.
When you have a community that welcomes people from different backgrounds,
Yeah.
you create this marketplace of ideas and skills and entrepreneurial spirit that can really drive innovation and growth.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's not just about tolerance.
Exactly.
It's about recognizing that diversity is like a powerful asset.
It is a powerful asset.
All right, so for our final stop on our cross-country tour,
Okay, the last stop.
let's head down south to Cedar Hill, Texas,
Oh.
which is near Dallas.
Okay.
What sets Cedar Hill apart?
Cedar Hill offers a really unique blend of natural beauty, family-friendly amenities, and a strong business environment.
Wow.
So it's attracting families who are looking for a high quality of life.
Okay.
They have access to parks, recreational activities, good schools,
Mm.
all within a reasonable commute to the job opportunities in Dallas.
So they found that sweet spot between like suburban comfort and urban accessibility.
Yeah, they have.
Okay, but it's not just about attracting residents though, right?
Right.
What about the businesses?
Well, Cedar Hill has been very intentional about fostering a pro-business environment.
Right.
They've worked to attract new businesses, they've supported the growth of existing ones, and created a climate where entrepreneurship can really flourish.
Wow.
Yeah, and this has led to a really diversified economy that's
Mm.
not overly reliant on, any one industry.
Right.
So it makes them more resilient to economic fluctuations.
That's really smart. Okay, so they've really focused on creating this solid foundation
Yeah.
for economic growth, attracting both families and businesses.
Exactly. It's kind of like a recipe for success,
Yeah. Yeah.
each community adding its own unique flavor to the mix.
Yeah. I like that a lot. All right, so before we start wrapping things up, I want to circle back to a community that I think left a lasting impression on me.
Okay, which one?
View Park Windsor Hills in California.
Oh, yes.
And the reason why this one sticks out to me is because it just seems like wealth goes beyond finances there.
Absolutely.
It's just steeped in history.
It's steeped in history and this profound sense of legacy.
Yeah, and they've had a lot of prominent Black figures who have lived and worked there,
Oh, yeah.
and made history.
Creating a legacy that continues to inspire residents today.
Yeah, and you have these iconic landmarks like the Golden State Mutual Life Insurance Building,
Yes.
which is just like a symbol of Black economic empowerment.
Absolutely.
And,
Yeah.
just all the beautiful homes and the architecture there and everything. It's just,
Yeah, it's stunning.
it's really incredible.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to me how those tangible reminders of the past can really fuel a sense of collective identity and pride.
Yes, and inspire residents to invest in their community's future.
Yeah, exactly.
It's about understanding where you come from,
Mhm.
celebrating your achievements,
Yeah,
and carrying that legacy forward.
absolutely.
And View Park Windsor Hills demonstrates how that strong sense of history can be a powerful driver of community cohesion and economic progress.
Yeah, it's almost like they've woven this rich tapestry of past, present, and future
Yeah,
and created a community that's both grounded and aspirational.
a beautiful blend.
Yeah, so having explored all these diverse communities all over the country,
Mhm.
what are some of the key takeaways that stand out to you?
Well, one of the things that I think is most striking is that thriving communities are built on this foundation of shared values
Hmm.
and collective effort.
Yeah.
Whether it's active civic organizations or supportive community programs
Yeah.
or a real dedication to quality education.
Yeah.
These communities understand that success is not a solo endeavor.
Mm-hmm.
It's about working together, investing in one another,
Yeah.
and creating an environment where everyone has the opportunity to thrive.
Yeah, and it's like that saying, it takes a village to
Exactly.
raise a child.
Yes.
But these communities have really kind of embraced that philosophy and extended it beyond just childbearing
Beyond just child rearing.
to encompass like the overall well-being of their residents.
Absolutely. They understand that individual success is often intertwined with the success of the community as a whole.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
And it's reflected in their commitment to education,
Hmm.
economic development, and, just creating a really strong social fabric.
Yeah. So it's not just about having wealth.
Exactly.
It's about how are we using that wealth
Right.
to create a more equitable and prosperous environment for everyone.
Absolutely.
And that's powerful.
It is.
Okay, so as we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Yeah.
I want to leave our listeners with something to think about. It sounds like they're attracting like a diverse mix of people,
Right.
from those who want to be closer to the city to those who maybe want a little bit more of that country living.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Okay.
So let's move on from Maryland,
Okay.
but let's stay on the East Coast for a second.
Ah.
Got to make a stop in New York
Okay.
because two communities there have also made it onto our list of,
Yeah.
thriving Black communities.
All right. Sounds good.
Hillcrest in Queens and Uniondale on Long Island.
Okay.
So Hillcrest really stood out to me because of their local business scene.
Yeah, Hillcrest is a great example of, where small businesses are really like the heart of the community.
Mm-hmm.
And you have, everything from family-owned restaurants and shops to professional services,
Yeah.
all contributing to this sense of economic vitality.
Yeah, and it seems like they've created this self-sustaining ecosystem,
Yeah.
where money is circulating within the community,
Yeah. Right.
supporting local jobs and families.
Keeping the money local.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so what about Uniondale? What makes it tick?
I think Uniondale is a really fascinating example of how diversity can be a strength.
Okay.
It's a community with such a rich mix of cultures and backgrounds,
Yeah.
and that diversity is reflected in its schools, its businesses, and its community organizations.
Yeah.
They've really embraced the idea that different perspectives and experiences can really enrich the fabric of a community.
That's great. And I also imagine that, like, by having those diverse businesses and services, they're catering to a wider range of needs
Absolutely.
and preferences within the community.
Exactly. And it shows that, embracing diversity isn't just about, social equity. It's also about economic vibrancy.
Yeah.
When you have a community that welcomes people from all different backgrounds,
Yeah.
you create this marketplace of ideas,
Yeah.
skills, and entrepreneurial spirit
Yeah.
that can really drive innovation and growth.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's not just about tolerance.
Right.
It's about recognizing that diversity is an asset.
It is a powerful asset.
Yeah. All right, so for our last stop on our little tour,
Okay.
let's head to the south,
All right.
to Cedar Hill, Texas.
Sounds good.
Now, Cedar Hill is near Dallas,
Okay.
and I'm curious, what sets Cedar Hill apart from some of these other communities?
Well, Cedar Hill offers a really unique blend of natural beauty, family-friendly amenities, and a strong business environment.
Oh,
And so they're attracting a lot of families who are really, seeking a high quality of life.
okay.
They have access to parks, recreational activities, good schools,
Hmm.
all within a reasonable commute to all the job opportunities in nearby Dallas.
So they're getting that suburban comfort,
Yeah.
but also that urban accessibility.
Exactly. The best of both worlds.
Yeah, they found the sweet spot, all right? So
Yeah.
it's not just about attracting residents, though.
Right.
We got to think about the businesses, too.
Well, Cedar Hill has been very intentional about fostering a really pro-business environment.
Okay.
They've worked really hard to attract new businesses. They've supported the growth of existing ones
Yeah.
and created this climate where entrepreneurship can truly flourish.
Wow.
And this has led to a really diversified economy
Okay.
that's not overly reliant on, any one industry.
Right, so it makes them a little bit more resilient
Exactly. Very Missouri.
to any kind of changes in the economy.
Exactly.
Okay, that's really smart. So it sounds like they really focused on creating a solid foundation
Yeah.
for economic growth, attracting both families and businesses.
They did. And I think it's a great example of how, each community can kind of add its own unique flavor to this recipe for success.
Yeah, I like that analogy a lot. Okay, so before we start wrapping things up, I want to circle back to a community that I think left a really lasting impression on me.
Okay. Which one is that?
View Park, Windsor Hills in California.
Oh, yeah. View Park.
This one really stood out to me because it seemed like wealth there goes beyond finances.
It does.
It's just steeped in history.
So much history and this profound sense of legacy.
Yeah, and it was home to a lot of prominent Black figures,
Oh, yes. Many.
who lived and worked there and made history.
And really created this lasting legacy that continues to inspire the residents there today.
Yeah, you have iconic landmarks like the Golden State Mutual Life Insurance Building,
Yes.
which is just like a symbol of Black economic empowerment.
Absolutely.
And then all the beautiful homes and the architecture.
Stunning.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's just amazing to me how those tangible reminders of the past
Yes.
can really fuel a sense of collective identity and pride.
They do, and they also inspire those residents to invest in their community's future.
Absolutely.
It's about understanding where you come from, celebrating your achievements, and then carrying that legacy forward. And View Park Windsor Hills shows how that strong sense of history can really be a driver of community cohesion and economic progress.
Yeah, it's like they've woven this really rich tapestry
Yeah,
of past, present, and future.
a beautiful blend.
Yeah, and created a community that is both grounded and aspirational.
They have.
Okay, so we've explored all of these different communities
Yes, we have.
all across the U.S.
Across the country.
So what are some of the big takeaways for you? What can we learn from their success stories?
Well, I think one of the things that's really striking is that all of these thriving communities are built on this foundation of shared values and collective effort.
Yeah.
Whether it's active civic organizations or supportive community programs or just this real dedication to quality education.
Yeah.
These communities understand that success is not a solo endeavor.
Yeah.
It's about working together, investing in one another, and creating an environment where everybody has an opportunity to thrive
And it's like that saying, it takes a village, right, to raise a child.
and raise a child.
But it's like they've taken that philosophy and extended it beyond just child rearing
Beyond just children.
to encompass the well-being of the whole community.
Absolutely. And they also understand that, individual success is so often intertwined with the success of the community as a whole.
Yeah.
And it's reflected in their commitment to education, to economic development,
Yeah.
and just to, creating this really strong social fabric.
Yeah, and I think it's really great that it's not just about having the wealth.
Right.
It's about what do we do with the wealth?
Exactly. How do we
How are we using it to
Yeah.
create a more equitable and prosperous environment for everyone?
for everybody?
Yeah, and that's powerful.
It is powerful.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about. We've seen all these great examples of communities really thriving all over the place.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that's really cool about this is that it's not just like a feel-good story, right?
Mhm.
It's like we can actually learn from these communities
Absolutely.
and apply those lessons to our own communities.
Yeah.
So I guess my question for our listeners is,
Yeah.
what makes your community tick?
Yeah, that's such a great question to reflect on because it encourages us to, go beyond just admiring these amazing communities and to think critically about how we can cultivate,
Yeah.
these same elements of community and education and, strategic development in our own neighborhoods.
Yeah. It's about recognizing that we're not just individuals.
Right.
We're part of this larger ecosystem.
Exactly.
And, the health of that ecosystem impacts all of us.
A rising tide lifts all boats.
It does. It really does. And, these communities have shown us that it's not about luck.
No.
It's about making conscious choices
Yes.
to invest in, our people,
Mm-hmm.
our education systems,
Yes.
and our shared spaces.
Our communities.
Yeah, they're really showing us that with vision and determination and a strong sense of community, anything is possible.
Anything is possible. And it's so inspiring to see.
It really is.
These communities are proof that we can make a difference
Yeah.
when we, actively participate,
Yeah.
invest wisely, and prioritize the well-being of our communities.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great note to end on.
I agree.
So let their stories be a source of inspiration for all of us.
Yes.
Let's learn from their successes,
Mm-hmm.
apply those lessons in our own communities,
Yeah.
and strive for a world where everyone has the opportunity to thrive.
A beautiful sentiment.
That's the bottom line of this deep dive.